Good afternoon to one and all joining this webinar. I would like to welcome you all. I hope you all are awake after the lunch session, and which I'm sure our trainers who have joined us today will also be able to give you impart knowledge with all their enthusiasm and energy that will keep you engaged in the session. I'd like to welcome you all to the webinar under the name Master AI Tools Before They Become a Norm in Finance. And I would like to welcome our two trainers, Dr. Arif Ahmed and Professor Veena Hingar. So, Dr. Arif Ahmed is a director at South Asian Management Technologies Foundation. Dr. Ahmed is also a chartered accountant from the UK and India. He holds a doctorate in finance besides having an MBA degree. He's also a qualified ACMA and CGMA professional. He has a post qualification experience of over 30 years in this field. Also, Professor Veena Hingar, she is the joint director from South Asian Management Technologies Foundation. Professor Veena is also a chartered accountant from the UK and India. She's also a qualified company secretary, ACMA, and CGMA professional. Additionally, she is a CISA and holds an MSc degree. She has a post qualification experience of 25 years, and she also serves as an independent director on boards of many listed companies. So our trainers, Dr. Arif and Professor Veena, they possess extensive experience in designing and delivering training sessions and consulting assignments across diverse industry, verticals, and global regions. Their clients span large corporations in banking and finance, oil and gas, power, real estate, hospitality, manufacturing, metals, engineering, and many other sectors that you can think of. With a clientele hailing from the UK, USA, Canada, Gulf nations, Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia, the Indian subcontinent, Malaysia, the Philippines, the Indonesia, North and South Africa, amongst others. They have demonstrated their expertise worldwide. Additionally, they have served as consultants to the World Bank and have authored books of renowned global publishing houses. So, Dr. Arif and Professor Veena have also been nominated to the Expert Advisory Committee of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, the apex body that provides guidance on complex accounting, auditing, and related matters. So, I would like to hand over the baton of today's webinar to Dr. Arif and Professor Veena. Over to you.
Thank you, Manil. I never realized that you were talking about us.
Thank you.
Right.
Pleasure.
Hello, everybody. I hope all of us are good and ready to understand what we talk about AI and how do we go about it. What we're going to do we're going to keep this session as extremely conversational, and we would be talking about some of the finer points. Promise you, this will not be technical unless you want it to be. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the delivery. You can keep on putting your question on the Q&A box. There's a separate Q&A box there. Somebody was having a trouble with sound. Is that only with you, or are others okay with the sound? Just let us know if others are hearing clearly. In that case, it may be a case with your system.
Dr. Arif, the audio is clear.
Yeah, well, lovely. So we are getting some sign that we are clear. So would you just check on your own system? Lovely. Great. Most of us are getting a clear one. All right. So what are we going to do here? We are going to talk about something on about the broadly around AI. There are a lot of misconceptions around. We would like to clarify some of them. We would move into the a part of how does AI tool can be useful in finance. And what we're going to do first is we are going to first destroy a myth that says that AI is for the IT professionals and the coders. By the end of this 60 minutes, I'm very sure he will come across a situation where he will say that no, it is not. All finance professionals can use it. Over to you.
Well, you can see that there's a small slide which has come up, but I'm not really going to take you through right now into this. But I, as a practicing professional and as a director in a bank as well as a manufacturing company, I can really see how AI has ingrained itself into the various functions that we are performing, Arif, in day-to-day functions. It may be ranging from simply asking queries to complex transaction processing to finding out areas which will help us to improve on our decision making. As a matter of fact, the other day we were having our board meeting, and we had asked the audit team as an audit chair that can you tell us what is the kind of activities or what is the kind of uh, complaints that are coming in from our customers which come to the branches, etc. Now, if I had asked this question, say about a year ago, or I would say 6 months ago, before we started on AI, probably he would tell me, okay, madam, I can get back to you, but give me 3 to 4 months of time to collate all the data. Now, all these complaints which have come on different emails, some of them have come on paper mode, written down notes, etc., which have been scanned and put into the system. All he did was run a query using some natural language processing tools and some recognition tools. And in a jiffy, he was able to give me the answer that what is the kind of patterns, what is the kind of sentiment that there is in the organization. And that's where I really see that it is helping finance to understand that what do I do next? What kind of products would I need to give my customers? What kind of feedbacks would give me that they are understanding the products that I'm giving them, and how my profitability would be linked to that, how my, I would say, cash flow would be linked to it, all the linkages. It's so easy now to comprehend and help us making the decisions sitting there on a strategic level, and of course flowing down to the various levels from the strategic to the tactical level. Everyone is now, I think, into this AI scenario.
Right. Now, if you look at this one, you may be wondering that where do I have finance coming in? Now, what has happened, to be very honest, earlier, the first focus of AI in finance was mostly in the area of money market, the financial market. You would have read a lot of application about it. Your portfolio manager would come and tell you that we are using AI technology to balance your portfolio, and they were doing good. Now, gradually, what's happening now, for example, in the risk management or the data and text analysis, they are getting extremely, I should say, helpful, or they've been found useful to use on a regular financial management. The world of finance exists to a very great extent outside merely portfolio management or money market. The focus was not there earlier. Now we are seeing, in fact, we have run a research on this area, and we are seeing that there are lovely areas on regular financial management where AI could be extremely useful. But before we move on to that particular discussion, let us take a quick poll to get an understanding about the audience here. So, shall we have the poll, please, Manesh?
Right. So we have one poll coming up, that how many of you have used AI tools? It could be in any place.
We all kind of half know, but then still.
Okay, so most of us say that we have used some AI tools.
So, what percentage does it look like? It's
79% have said that they do have used AI tools. And believe me, let me tell you that if you would have used, I would say, your mobile phone, and you've told Alexa, can you do this for me? somewhere at the background there is an AI tool. So many times recommendations, the other time I'd gone on a holiday to Cambodia recently, and when we were planning the trip, all of a sudden Google was giving us a lot of information, I would say links. I was wondering, is the phone spying on me? So definitely somewhere AI had touched me over there.
Lovely. So 79% of us here have used AI in some form or other. Let us move down a little closer. And Manish, can we have the second poll, please? And which is a more specific one. And let's see how do we go here. So it says, how many of you have used AI tools other than ChatGPT and similar one, like you have a lot of them, Meta, Grok, and everything else? So the question is outside ChatGPT. Okay. Right. Now you see the 17 of the 79% which we said, now we have
38% who says
38% is, and the rest of you have used only ChatGPT. We will take this opportunity to introduce the AI universe in front of us. A lot of us have been, I would say, kind of conditioned, not trained, but conditioned due to some usage and others to think about that what is a that chat gpt are the only applications that we use on the AI, but the AI world goes beyond this. So let's have a quick understanding of what we're calling is the AI universe.
Well, Arif, the word universe, I would say, is really apt here because if you look at the entire gamut of I look at it in a very layered form, right? We know what AI is. It's about using machines and other systems which ape a human intelligence. It helps us, therefore, in decision making. It can have some cognitive skills, but does it mean that it can do everything that humans can? Well, there are different layers of artificial intelligence. If we look at it, the outer layer, which we commonly call artificial intelligence, it is referring to the entire system. But below that, you have other layers, like you have machine learning. You're using different kind of like Python, you can use R and all, where the machine is learning from data. It's finding out patterns in the data. It is running certain algorithms on the data. It could be supervised. It could be an unsupervised. These techniques, the terms, as you'll go deeper, it will become more clear to you. And then you are coming out with certain, I would say, logical outputs, which is being used by financial professionals to make their decision making. For example, if I give you, I'm running a regression analysis and it is giving me uh, probably the major factors which will influence my decision. So we'll go into other areas like you have neural networks. Now, neural networks and you have deep learning, which is going more aping the human brain, where the entire information, when the query goes in, it goes across the entire information forward and backwards like a brain is thinking, and it comes and arrives at the correct answer. So that's like a network structure with different layers in the network, and it will proceed backwards and forwards to come to the correct output, just like a human brain. Then you come to areas like natural language processing, which is again another layer, a sub-layer where it can read data, it can find out about data, images, it can go about probably finding out sentiments, from the writing. I was having a chat that day and I said, I need to draft a letter, but I need to make it in a very angry note. Can a tool like generative AI, which is another aspect of AI, do that? Yes, it could do that. And it gave me letters in three different tones: soft, harsh, and probably trying to make a negotiation. So how did it actually go behind? It has these large language models, and you go into these large language models and you train all the data there. And when you put your query to that model, like in ChatGPT or in Copilot or Claude or Meta, all of them have been trained in loads of data. And then you would, when you fire your query, it brings out, combines all the search, whatever the information it has through a process. Like all the data is in the form of tokens, and then it combines them and gives you out a right answer, right? So that's called generative AI, because taking this data, it will generate out your answer, and it will give you, it's also got a self learning. Whatever you put into the data, further into that system, it learns from there. And then you have a third angle, which is, super. So we saw the first angle was all about machine learning, neural networks, etc. You had the second angle of generative AI, and you have a third angle that's called super intelligence. Now, is super intelligence here? Well, not yet, but will it be here soon? I think it'll take a lot of time, where computers can replace human beings. So I normally say computers help us to give us process data. It can do repetitive tasks. It is really efficient, but will it be replacing me? No, my thought process still remains. And super intelligence, although a lot of research is going on, is yet to come there, Arif.
Yeah. So what you mean is basically that if I give my the restaurant bills to a system, a machine learning can perhaps tell me that what kind of dessert I like to have. So you do a machine learning, find out a pattern that after what kind of food, what kind of dessert I like to have. Now, when I go to a generative AI and I ask the generative AI, can you recommend some dessert for me? The Gen AI asks me back a question, what did you have for your main food? And once you get the generative AI, what did I have for my main food? It looks up the pattern and gives me an answer. And now we were talking in simple language. So that's where the human interaction comes around. And the super intelligence, perhaps when it comes around, is going to tell me, hey, skip the dinner tonight. You have had too much. So that could be the perhaps the third level when it is actually using its judgment or creating a judgment to bring about a suggestion there. Why we wanted to point out this AI universe is because some of us are already in the middle layer. Some of us are talking about the generative AI, using it extensively. But in order to use it for our financial domain, I need to understand what is the logic that populates that generative AI. So we are going to go back there for the machine learning tools, as Veena spoke about, where the past data is analyzed. A question may come in our mind that we even do that today. Yes, indeed we do. But what happens when the data volume is large or certain trends are very subtle? In that case, it becomes difficult for us to identify that area, or maybe, apprehend or comprehend that there is a trend, a distinct trend there. This is something which a processing would take care of it faster. And this is where we would actually be using some various tools that we can work around. Now, give us a moment. I'm sorry that this should have come. We'll just stop that. Okay. Now we talk about we always have the concept on AI means it requires a high level of computerization. It needs a lot of infrastructure. It needs an extreme bit of coding understanding, and how can I possibly work it on our work desk. The problem here is whenever we think of conceptual AI, since a lot of us are using a chat GPT and we have heard about the GPUs and the amount of computing power they need, we are a little apprehensive about it. But let me assure you, the system that you are using right now, I can assure you, majority of you can install even locally some of the machine learning tools and can use them. Your restriction could be in terms of speed or how much of data you can store. But in terms of the basic functions, basic analysis that would be doing for a financial management, a large number of it can actually be done on our regular work desk. I can run programs, I can identify patterns, I can create models, I can save models, I can connect to live data, I can use the live data for this processing. All this can be done. Let me give you some of the names. For example, while you were working on them, I mean, there's a suit called Anaconda, right? I mean, you have some of you might have seen the Anaconda movie 1 and 2. This is a non-zoological anaconda, right? You have a package called Anaconda which you can download on your local system and then can install it there. It's a pretty big package. Now, if you find that the package is too big, you can use it on the web also. Though if you're using it on the web, they charge you a subscription beyond a point. But if you're using it locally, you are paying no subscription for that. Now you must say, I don't need all the areas of Anaconda. Then what do? There's something called a mini conda, which is exactly like Anaconda, but gives you certain selected tools to use. And all these have a lovely graphical interface. We use them through a browser. It's a plain, most of them are a drag and drop kind of a feature set there. All we need to do is to implement certain machine learning tools inside. Now, are they very difficult? Well, let me put it in this way, that if you are able to do a, a complex equation in Excel, maybe if you have used some of the Excel's advanced features, in that case, I can assure you there's not much of a difference here. The broad templates are available in many places. They're publicly available. Once you understand the structure of how these models work, you can look at the template and tweak them. That's why I know we call them a low code. It's a very low code. You need a little bit of coding knowledge and you can use them. It's just like somebody else has created a budgeting worksheet and given it to us. And I'm auditing the budgeting worksheet, understanding how it works, and tweaking some of the parts. So when you use the AI on your work desk, you can do that. Immediate question comes, what about my data privacy? Indeed, it's a very good question. And it's a very legitimate question also. The tools that generally can be used on a local desk, on your local machine, are not dependent on your internet connectivity. So the best way what we do, if somebody has a doubt that am I sharing data outside, I say, lovely, load it, load the main package, done. Now you get out of the network, shut down your internet connection and see, is it working? You can't have a better proof if it is working even without internet connectivity, that your data is secured and is being hosted by your local system only, right? But naturally, if I'm using a large volume of data, I need a large storage space, I need a larger memory, and maybe depending on the size of the data, I may even need a bit of, I should say, larger processing power. But that's not very common. That's not very usual for the nature that we will be using. Unless, of course, as I said, you were working on a financial institution environment, or you're working in such places where you handle a lot of live data, then the computing power becomes very, very critical. So that's broadly the areas that you have. So in short, don't you worry, you have tools You have your computing power right now with you. You don't need to put it in your next budget for going into AI.
Right, Arif. And I always found it very funny why they called it Anaconda. And then when we started looking at other, there are so many libraries that are ready-made available to do arithmetic computations and others. And funnily, many of them, including the language like Python, and then you have pandas, and you have so many animals around that I always found it very funny why they did do it. But as you mentioned, that well, that's how they did name these work AI tools. Now, going into the analysis of financial data, I did see in the chat box there was a question related whether we can give you certain. Please link the tools with finance related activities and with to have some specific reference. We will do that. Let's first take an example. Let's talk about analysis of financial data, and then I'll give you some specific finance related
Lovely. Yeah,
activities.
it's a very good observation in terms of the financial data. So we will come to the financial data. Now let's talk about when I'm having a data. Now to analyze the financial data from a machine learning, first for a moment, let us recognize data in itself. We're not talking about a financial statement right now. We are not talking about the accounting. We are not talking about IFRS. Let us first understand the nature of the data. As a financial manager, and my role and my role as an accounting are quite different. And I'm sure all of us appreciate that. Now, one problem happens whenever we're talking about finance, we tend to go back to our textbook and we try to look at, for example, let's say I'm talking about a break-even point. Now, when I'm talking about a break-even point, so I have a formula which gives me my break-even point. It involves a fixed cost, it involves a variable cost, it involves my capacity, etc., etc. The data that have been given to me about a fixed cost, how did I arrive at that data? This is where the real machine learning tools comes into play. For example, in a machine learning tool, we can do a lot of analysis. For example, we call them a time series. We have a past data. We look into the past data and try to find out its trend. We try to find out, is that data dependent on time? Does it change over time? Or is it influenced by something else? Or it is influenced by both? For example, consider a global warming as we talk about it. And we consider now today we are going to do a sustainability reporting. So we have to understand what kind of pressure can come on us and in terms of my emission standards and others. Now, if you look at the past data, you will find out that over the year, the global warming has been increasing, generally with a very minor exception. So now this is something on a time series. If I look into the prices of a product, let's say a crude petroleum, and we try to find out, does it follow a time series? You will find too many ups and downs. Now, if I have too many ups and downs, then under what basis did I project that price? Or under what basis did I project my demand? I'm saying I'll be breaking even at 80% of capacity. Lovely. But do I have a data or an assurance that I'm likely to reach that 80% of capacity or not? Now, I look back my past data, I look back the data from the environment, and I try to project it, try to find out what kind of trend they display. There could be one very simple question here, and I'll be delighted if that has come into your mind already. Well, Excel can do that. Of course, Excel can do that. So why do I come over to machine learning? Now, there's no limitation. Mind you, Excel as a tool, in some of the aspects, Excel is also what I jokingly call a poor man's AI tool. There are a lot of things that Excel can do. There's some which Excel cannot do. For example, I am trying to find out a trend. Now, if you look at a trend they may be following a cyclical pattern. So there may be a cyclicity involved in that particular demand for the product or price for it. As we said, let's take the turbine, ATF, the turbine fuel. Let's take the cost of a hotel. Let us take the interest rates, the changing of the interest rates. Let us even take the prices of commodities. Or for that matter, if we look into our maintenance, is there a cyclicality in terms of our power cost? ML tools can identify these cyclicalities and give you the core trend. So I have an overall trend. I have a cyclical issue which will be effective only on certain cycles, and there could be certain noise items. These items are something which I cannot predict. These items are something which clouds our view from the underlying trend. So a machine learning tools comes back to me and detrends and tells me this is your core trend, this is your cyclical effect, and these are the noises or residual noises as we call them. So now you have a clear trend. You pick up the clear trend, compare with your budget, and say, am I likely to reach that break-even point? So you can understand when we use in a financial domain, these things can take us a lot different. For example, something we call is a moving average. Now, I have an average. Many times, what we argue is that by the time I have come to the end of the year, everything has changed. I started my year annual budgeting based on an average value of the last 12 months. But when I come to the end of my budgeting period, that average is 11 months old. And depending on the industry and the circumstances, that may be totally outdated. Now, if I use a moving average, again, there I can make my prediction based a lot contemporary. Again, can't Excel do that? Yes, it can do that. But then it involves a lot more manual process, and then you manually link it to something, your subsequent process. When you're using a machine learning tool, the machine learning tool can itself use the data, find out the detrend them as we call them, project them, and if your IT system permits, that projected value can be integrated with your budget, with your break-even analysis, with your profitability analysis, and the whole thing gets updated as soon as one new data point comes in without you
Literally,
involving
the
anything.
dashboard gets populated automatically
That's
as
right.
well.
That's right. In fact, since when I mentioned it, believe you me, that the dashboards and the machine learning, you as a finance professional can create a dashboard before you go to the committee meeting and give everybody an IP address. They can log into the dashboard and can see the dashboard from you. The meeting ends, you disconnect it, dashboard's gone. Right?
Another very major area which benefited us was in the area of inventory. When we used AI in three major parts, one was for demand forecasting, the other one was to determine our economic order quantity, safety stock, and reorder levels. And the third one was for optimizing the entire warehousing and distribution planning. Now, let me come to one by one to these. The demand planning, as Arif was talking before about trends, etc. Well, yes, those are applied to price and to find out. But what I really loved about the demand forecasting was that it could take in factors both from the external as well as from the internal environment. So it could bring in the prices, it could go through various information, news, etc. It could go through factors like your consumer price index, your industry indexes, etc., and draw all that data from the external environment. And then it could look at our own data, our past history, historical data about our customers, about what has been, about our production, and put all these things together and then find out which were the factors which were most influential on this demand forecasting, and then use those and forecast the demand, which really I think brought up the efficiency as well as the effectiveness level of these demand forecasts, and it drove the entire production, the sales, and all the other linked processes after that. The second area that I found really helpful was in the economic order quantity. Now, many times some are new products, we don't have data enough to actually forecast. And that's where, various simulation techniques could be built in to find out this annual demand, because EOQ is a simple formula, but the only thing is I need to know what is the annual demand. And it helped us to actually integrate a lot of simulations. Before, I used to only hear the word Monte Carlo simulation, and we needed like real statistical softwares to actually do this Monte Carlo simulation. But now it was like a touch of a button, and there the data was simulated. It gave us a high level, normal level, and a low level demand forecasting, and all the data was before us, so we could decide depending on our risk appetite that at what level I want to keep my safety stock, what level should be my reorder quantity, what is my economic order quantity at different scenarios. So all that was really, I think, helped to optimize the amount of working capital or the money that I was using into the inventory. The third area, as I was saying, was about the warehousing and your distribution logistic planning. That's where it helped us to optimize, like if one warehouse goes out of stock, which warehouse should be supplying which, I would say, retail outlet, and which was the most optimal place to it would redo the entire calculations, and it would give us that, okay, now this is, if this one is not available, this is the second best option to go for. And all this was being done real time. So that was one major application from the area of finance, which I think really value added into the organization.
But the focus area here is the finance, the cost of it. The one is not trying to actually find out that which is the optimal solution in terms of the supply logistics. We are trying to optimize them on the basis of my cost. So what I'm trying to find out that if one warehouse goes down or one factory goes down, or I have a multiple vendors, which network I should follow, which will reduce my cost. This challenge comes up because what happens, some of these questions are considered non-financial problem. And so on the table, your supply team or a logistics team or maybe the engineering team is giving us the solution. As a finance person, I am defending my bottom line at the end of the quarter.
And the working capital
And the
requirement.
working capital. I'm defending it at the end of the quarter. But this might have been spotted because of an engineering efficiency issue. So I would always argue that am I here? If I'm an engineering company marveling on my engineering excellence, absolutely, no problem. But if I have a group of shareholders to whom I have to report to, and we're looking at the profit, and we're not compromising on the quality of my product, but merely following an acceptable or another route, which engineering wise may not be optimal, not defective, but may not be optimal, but optimizes my return, I shall follow that. Unfortunately, we didn't have those tools because we were not professionals on the supply chain. We did not know these the various tools that we are using in operational research. But today, machine learning allows me to do this without knowing anything about machine learning, about my supply chain logistics. All I need to know what are the points which point serves a point and which points are served by this point and what are the associated cost and time movement. I just feed in this data to my machine learning library. The machine learning library immediately comes back to me and gives me this is the best path, this is the cost you want to do. If I want to tell the machine, no, I don't want to optimize on cost, show me the optimal time, because there is a contractual clause that if I fail on the time, there will be huge penalty there. So at that point of time, I'm trying to minimize my loss. So I will tell the machine just by moving one comma from one point to the other one and say, well, optimize it on the basis of time, and the system will give me the optimal time.
It
So what is
also
doing?
gave us a lot of scenarios. Yeah, I think we are back on the screen. Can you hear us now?
Yes, we can hear you and see the screen,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
we can't see
okay.
your
I mean, there
video.
was certain network issue and everything dropped. And
Right.
I was speaking to myself for quite long.
Oh no.
Right. Right.
Okay. So what we were talking about there, basically what is happening, that all these changes have kind of forced us and moved us away from being a number cruncher to be a strategic contributor. Yeah.
Right. Arif, another
The camera is not working.
Yes, yes,
yeah.
and because we're using the network to care of the
Yes,
Yeah.
topic.
perfect. It's visible now.
Yeah. So another major area, Arif, that I was looking at when we were implementing is in the budgeting process, where, as you said, a lot of models can be used to simulate various scenarios to predict, etc. And recently, we had a major issue at one of our branches, and then we realized that it was very difficult, to go like in a bank. There are so many policy documents, and it was very difficult to actually review all the policies and to see complete adherence to all the policies, which is so important in a bank for regulatory purposes. And that's where this AI tool really helped the us as bankers, where we could simply load all our policies into the database, and the AI tool would generate. It was more like a agentic AI application, and it would generate all the applicable answers and recommend the best after reading all the documents, to the branch managers, and that would be helping them to go forth with the compliance. So there are so many uses that AI can happen. There are so many tools that AI can give us that helps us as finance people on a day-to-day.
In fact, the example that I gave you, for any companies, this example can be extended to what we do in a related party disclosure. So we have a list of the organizations with related party, and we have a lot of documents with us, and from there we can find out in how many places did we touch upon a related party disclosure, or for that matter, if you're implementing a AML or we are looking into a FATCA declaration, then we can look into a bank statement and try to find out the point of origin, and they're all done automatically from the various tools that we have. Right. I think the way that has changed is extremely significant. When I spoke about her experience with the UQ, you also have an additional areas, for example, your mark to market, that those can be done entirely in an automated way. In fact, we were even discussing the other day that we may be even able to use a past database and try to see that whether it makes sense under IFRS 9 to have some investment at an amortized or change our holding policy so that they can be reported at an amortized cost or otherwise. Now, what Vinay has propped up is interesting. What more can AI see which we can't? And I would love to answer that. Now, my textbook has already told me, always had told me, say, this is a variable cost or this is a fixed cost. Now, forget about it for a while. And let us take my past cost behavior, past profit, past some other data, profit figure, and put it on a machine learning, which we call an unsupervised learning. It's very interesting. I'm not going to talk about go into the details of that. What is a unsupervised learning? But broadly what we are talking about here is, in case of an unsupervised learning, I do not know what the data nature is. Like as finance people, the moment I see a data, I tend to think this is a fixed cost or this is a variable cost. When I go for a machine learning environment, I do not pre-assume anything. I give it to the machine, and the system, without labeling it as a fixed or variable, and it does the analysis over a time and tells me that this seems more fixed than others. This seems more related with others. I have a very common example. My favorite example is if you look at the endorsement costs in case of a soft drink beverage, soft beverages company, if you look at the endorsement cost, that will be pretty high cost. A classical book, a text on costing would consider that as a fixed cost. But if you put it into a machine learning, I can assure you they will identify there's a very clear linkage between your endorsement cost and the volume that I have sold. So in real practical implication, that cost is behaving like a variable cost and not behaving like a fixed cost. There are ample examples of like this in which AI can unearth hidden relationship, hidden dependencies, which generally we do not do because what happens, we have a set definition in our mind. So we take the set definition and we put the set definition and say, this is what it is. So that's why there are a lot of tools. I'm not going to cloud you on them, but I'm also going to mention here one very interesting, important area that when we're talking about a model, the beauty of a AI tool is I create a model, and once I create a model, I save that model for subsequent use. The saved model can learn from the new data. The saved model can predict from a new set of data. This is something unique, and this is something extremely powerful for our AI applications.
Arif, before we go into the question and answer, I would like to share one thought which I learned during yoga. Yoga tells us that there are dots that you can join together. There are limits that you can join together to achieve the limitless, right? And when I thought about AI, I said, oh my God, this is so true. It's like yoga. You can actually join so many limits, so many aspects, so many things which are uncertain as well, and yet arrive at an answer which is so logical, which can be used for our financial decisions. So, Arif, let's move to the question and answer session. I will just look into the chat box. Let me just look into the chat box and see if there are any questions.
It could be also in the Q&A.
Okay, that's in the Q&A box. Okay. Do you think AI will replace our jobs? Arif, would you like to take it or should I take that answer?
Well,
Let's both take it. Let's get your view.
Well, jobs per se, it's a very, very wide description. It will perhaps take away the jobs as they stand today. But what happens here, the nature of the job that itself changes. What we are doing today is not exactly what was done 20 years back. I've equipped myself with the new technology. So as far as the job is concerned, the job remains there. Our job remains there, may not be the job. And this migration is important for us to recognize. And so we look into the migration, we understand the migration, we understand the skill requirement, and we empower ourselves. That's a natural process. If anybody is telling us we will be replaced, in some of the cases, yes, it is being replaced. A lot of companies you are seeing are reporting that they're dropping people. A lot of coding is now being automated. So the people who only knew about the coding, well, we are losing somebody there. But even today, those codes are not being put into production without being verified, without being audited. So my knowledge of coding would perhaps find a different application in auditing the code rather than in creating the code. So that's how a lot of areas would change. My domain knowledge. Let me give a very interesting example. Playing around, and I gave a chat GPT a simple question. And listen to me carefully, the question I drafted. I said, three scientists went to a restaurant and there were three bottles there, same size, the salt and pepper bottles. One was empty. The other two had this, one had salt, one had pepper, but they were wrongly labeled. The label was on the cap, but they were wrongly labeled. So how should they correct that? The chat GPT gave me a lovely answer that you should take up the salt, put it on the empty bottle, then put the pepper into that correct bottle, bring the salt back, and that's done. Wonderful answer, correct answer. I asked chat salt, put it on the salt and the pepper on the pepper. He said, yes, yes, of course, that could be done. So now, why did ChatGPT not give me this answer? Because I gave a clue to the ChatGPT saying three scientists. So it got motivated in thinking that there must be a complex answer to that. So the domain was not very clear. So when our domain as a finance person is very clear, we will go on in advising the AI engine to what is to be done. And the training that I gave, that was a training. So I trained the AI tool then. Now, if you go and ask ChatGPT the same question, there's a likelihood you will get the answer which I had taught it. It will not fall for the scientific trap. Yes, madam.
Right. Arif, if I look into the finance, when I started my profession as a chartered accountant, most of the books used to be manually written. In my school, I never learned computers, right? But then as we progressed over the years, these skills have become part of our life, right? And why did it become a part of our life? Because became ingrained across all the environment and the processes that we were in. Then came the mobile phones, and we were using these small mobile phones where we used to hear there was no smart mobile phones. And then smart mobile phones came in, and my mother was almost 80 years and she was using Facebook and she was using different parts of WhatsApp and all these things on the smart mobile. She never ever learned about all these things, but it just came in the environment. And today what has happened, AI is just coming in into the environment in so many aspects that we are left with no choice but to skill ourselves. But will it replace our jobs? I don't think it will, because AI, yes, the repetitive parts where it is performing for us, it is putting two and two together and giving us a kind of an answer. But at the end of the road, the human intelligence still remains there. And telling AI what to do is again done by us, right? So I think it is complementing our job. It is making it more efficient, more effective. I think I can take out more time into decision making. And that's where because it's so useful, it's getting ingrained everywhere. I think that's the charm of using AI. Of course, let's see, 10, 30 years from now, if super intelligence comes in, then maybe I'll have to think otherwise. But right now, yes, it cannot replace human beings.
Yeah, I think
It's
what
complementing
what is
us.
important to note is that we need to build a relevant skill which the time needs. It is not the technology that makes anybody obsolete. It is the demand of the industry which makes somebody obsolete. Today, if I do not know IFRS and I'm trying to implement an accounting, I am obsolete. So it's not merely technology, the changing rules and everything makes a person obsolete, makes a job redundant. So as long as we are keeping up with that, right now I don't see, not in the finance profession. I mean, it evolves, it has evolved. We do not have those bookkeepers as we had 30 years back. We have moved on to electronic ledgers, and people have migrated from using a manual book into the ERPs. So that will be the same story here. Let's look at the chat. So there's
Yeah.
any other questions there?
Is there any other questions which are coming up? I think one question was there in the chat box, which sadly, when I went out, it got logged out. Binish, can you see any other questions were there on the chat box?
Yeah, they're asking about, can you please link the tools with finance related activities to have a specific reference? I think this is regarding the tools which you
Yeah, we
mentioned.
actually took it across during the session, and there are various kinds of tools that are used. RF was talking about Anaconda. As a matter of fact, Microsoft is incorporating Anaconda into Microsoft Excel. I think some versions have already got it. And then you use Python, you're using different libraries of Python, like you have pandas for you, you have different network tools, you have anomaly detection tools, you have neural network related tools. So there are different kinds of tools. We gave you a broad idea of different processes where it is being used, but yes, it's a vast subject. And I was giving a training session on this to one of the banks. I think it was in Philippines at that time, or yeah, it was in Philippines. And there was a lady there who was the head of internal audit of a bank, and she was about 60 plus, and she came and told at the beginning of the session, Veena, do you think I'll be able to learn this? Because I don't even know how to operate computers as such or programming, and I can use Word and Excel. And I told her, don't worry, if you can use Word and Excel, by the end of the 4 days, you will be able to use AI. And at the end of the 4 days, she came back to me and said, oh my God, there's so many use cases that I've seen with you that I know exactly now what I need to get back and do and ask my team to do. So it's something that you can pick up the skills for. And once you've got the general idea of how to go about it, the thought processes are limitless.
In fact, to be very clear, there's no specific tool per se, but you have this entire environment in which, I mean, there's no specific solution, but there are tools which we have to tune towards this environment. There's no tool to compute break-even point. There's no tool to compute the EOQ, but there are certain disciplines in which we use along with the generative AI. These tools are available with us in no time. And with our finance domain knowledge, we can understand whether it's working properly or not.
What's more important is to have the knowledge of the finance domain.
Yeah,
If
that's
Yeah.
I still hold that. I always hold even today that the natural intelligence will still rule over the artificial intelligence.
Is there any assistance or tool to have AI in EOQ, reorder point, min-max, and inventory?
Very easily, very easily. Now there are, as I said, there are certain functions available in some of the libraries which can arrive at this. I mean, strictly speaking, there is a library which computes EOQ also. So you can jolly well do that, but a counter argument can come around that the EOQ can be done by Excel also. But what this tool will do is it will compute the EOQ and then it will create scenarios. Let's take it will push up your lead time by plus minus 5%, push up your annual demand by plus minus 10%, push up your holding cost and carrying cost and ordering cost by plus minus 15%, create maybe, and I'm not joking, creating maybe 1 million combinations and give you an output that given your past, your static EOQ is X, but your dynamic EOQ, 95% of the time should be this, 80% of the time would be this, 60% of the time would be this. So from a static decision maker, you have migrated to a dynamic decision maker. You have migrated from a place of a one dot to a position of a link. And now you can decide, go back to the top management and say, at what level of risk are you willing to take? Because if I take a risk of 80% level, which means I'm keeping 20% level of risk that I will be out of the material. This may not be acceptable for airlines. This may not be acceptable for a power plant. This may be a risk worth taking by a fashion chain, not worth taking by a hospital. So depending on your risk preference, now you are joining your risk management scenario with your regular financial management. And these tools are there.
And normally, or if you use it for like when you categorize your items into A, B, and C, again, which can be done using AI, and we use these models mainly onto the A and then partially onto the B items, and the low priced or items or the C-level items, we don't really use these models. So the critical items are that we focus on, and then we can use the models and really come out with a lot of cost saving. That's what I found.
Right. Any other questions?
Well, very good question. Yeah.
Uh, Great. I think we don't have questions now. I'm
Well,
also a little conscious of the time. So
yes.
I think if the delegates have any questions, we'll be definitely sending them an email, post webinar email, and they can get in touch with us through that. So I'd also like to tell the delegates that we have an upcoming course on AI and data analytics for finance professionals from 21st July until 24th of July. So if you are interested, please feel free to get in touch with us. What we'll do is we'll be getting in touch with you after this webinar, and you will be receiving an email in the next 24 to 48 hours. So if you are interested, please do let us know, and we'll guide you with more information and how to register for the course. So that's all from our end. Thank you again, Dr. Arif and Professor Veena, for your time and taking
Pleasure.
us through this interesting session. And I'm sure the course is also going to be equally beneficial for all the delegates who have registered for this. So thank you once again for your time, and I wish a great evening to everyone ahead
Thank
now.
you.
Thank you
Thank you,
once again.
everybody. Thank you
Thank
for
you, everyone.
joining. Thank you for those lovely questions. Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you.
What if you and your team can be even more? Even more informed, competitive, accomplished, even more successful. With programs designed to inspire and empower everyone to become even more. Introducing Informa Connect Academy. With hundreds of global, digital, and in-person training courses led by world-renowned industry experts. Reimagining learning experiences for even more unlocked potential. Informa Connect Academy, available at informaconnect.com/academy.